He didn't need a crown. He didn't need a throne. All Al Capone needed was a fedora, a cigar, and a city gripped by fear. He wasn't just a gangster. He was Chicago's underground emperor. When he walked into a room, silence followed. When his name echoed through the streets, doors locked and lips sealed, and when he gave the order, blood ran in gutters. He controlled booze in a nation that banned it, bribed police sworn to stop him, and ruled like a king from the back room of a speakeasy. But his empire didn't crumble from bullets or betrayal. It collapsed under a pile of tax returns. And that's what makes his story terrifying. It wasn't gunfire that stopped him. It was a number on a ledger. This isn't fiction. This isn't cinema. This is real. This is how Al Capone, the most feared man in America, was brought to his knees not by gang war, but by a tax bill. In the 1920s, America was drunk on jazz and choking on prohibition. The Volstead Act turned everyday citizens into criminals overnight. Bootleggers became millionaires, gangs exploded, and nowhere was the fire hotter than Chicago. The city became a jungle where lawmen were outnumbered, outgunned, and outspent. Politicians were bought, judges were owned, police were puppets, and in the middle of this chaos stood one man, Alphonse Gabriel Capone. Capone didn't stumble into power, he chased it. Born in Brooklyn, raised by the streets, he didn't just break the law. He studied it, exploited it, mastered it. At 14, he dropped out of school after hitting a teacher. By his 20s, he was working under Johnny Torrio, a mastermind in Chicago's underworld. When Torrio nearly died in a gangland hit, Capone didn't flinch. He took over. At just 26 years old, he was running a criminal empire bigger than most corporations. This wasn't street-level crime. This was an operation with accountants, lawyers, hitmen, and politicians on the payroll. Capone's money flowed from every forbidden vice: booze, brothels, gambling, racketeering. He owned the entire town of Cicero, just outside Chicago. Judges were in his pocket. City councilmen bowed before him, and if they didn't, they disappeared. He threw lavish parties and handed out money to the poor. He played the benevolent godfather in public, while behind closed doors, he ordered murders with the flick of a hand. His enemies didn't just lose, they vanished. Then came February 14th, 1929, the morning of the St. Valentine's Day massacre. Capone's men, dressed as police officers, lined 7 members of the rival North Side gang against a garage wall and filled them with 70 bullets. Tommy guns echoed through Lincoln Park like thunder. The photos, bodies crumpled in blood, lifeless against brick, shocked the nation. It was carnage. But Capone, he was in Miami, relaxing in the sun, sipping whiskey. No fingerprints, no witnesses, just suspicion and silence. The public gasped, politicians flailed, newspapers screamed, and yet Capone kept smiling. Chicago's murder rate soared, bodies turned up in alleys, rivers, basements. But the law couldn't touch him. The Bureau of Investigation, the early FBI, had no jurisdiction over murder. Capone laughed in the face of subpoenas, skipped hearings, and waltzed back to his fortress of corruption. He wasn't hiding, he was untouchable. But someone in Washington had an idea. If the law couldn't punish Capone for murder, maybe they could punish him for math. Enter the U.S. Treasury. A special team, led by Elmer Eyre and relentless IRS agent Frank Wilson, began digging through Capone's empire. They weren't looking for bullets. They were looking for receipts, hidden ledgers, forgotten records. Anything to prove that Capone's millions hadn't been taxed. It was a war of patience and paperwork. And slowly, page by page, they built a case. Wilson found a ledger, just one, scribbled in a back room of a Capone-controlled casino. It wasn't flashy, just names and numbers, but it was everything. It linked income to Capone directly. His defense team panicked. Capone offered plea deals. He promised fines, even jail time on his terms. But the judge saw through it. The trial moved forward. In court, Capone ditched the bravado. No more cigars, no more smirks, just a desperate man facing the one enemy he couldn't buy: evidence. Witnesses testified. Forensic accountants broke down his income. The jury listened. The verdict was crushing. 11 years in federal prison, a $50,000 fine, $2 or $15,000 in back taxes. Capone had lost. He entered prison a king. He left a ghost. His first stop, the Atlanta U.S. Penitentiary. But whispers of bribes followed him even behind bars. So the government sent him to hell on earth. Alcatraz, the rock, cold, isolated, unreachable. There, Capone was no one, no empire, no guards on his payroll, just a cell, just silence. His mind, once razor-sharp, began to decay. Syphilis had rotted his brain. By the time he was released, he barely knew who he was. The man who once ruled Chicago was now drooling on the porch of a Florida mansion, lost in shadows. And yet, the legend of Capone refused to die. Al Capone walked out of Alcatraz on November 16, 1939, a shell of the beast who once owned Chicago. His empire was gone, shattered by ledgers and lawmen. His mind, riddled by syphilitic dementia, had turned on him. He'd gone from orchestrating murders to playing cards with invisible friends in his cell. And when the steel doors opened, there were no cheering crowds, no loyal lieutenants, just silence. He wasn't feared anymore. He was forgotten. He moved to his Palm Island mansion in Miami, a place once built for kings, but now echoing with loneliness. The man who made millions off blood and bootlegging now spent his days fishing in his bathrobe, mumbling about the old days, slipping deeper into the abyss. His wife, May, stood by him. His son, Sonny, avoided the limelight. Capone's brain was deteriorating so fast that doctors estimated by 1946 his mental age was 12. The kingpin of Chicago had become a confused child in a haunted palace. But the world hadn't forgotten. Capone's name lingered like smoke in American consciousness. Books, newspapers, and gossip painted him as a criminal genius, a tyrant, a misunderstood anti-hero. In 1947, when he died of a stroke and pneumonia at just 48, the nation paused. He was buried at Mount Olivet Cemetery, later moved to Mount Carmel. No state funeral, no criminal send-off, just dirt, silence, and the whispers of a legacy soaked in blood. And yet, the myths exploded. Was Capone really sick? Or did he fake madness to escape prison early? Did he stash millions in offshore accounts? Some said he had secret tunnels under Cicero, treasure vaults in Chicago, gold buried in Florida. In 1986, the world tuned in as journalist Geraldo Rivera opened Capone's vault on live television. The build-up was electric. Was this where the king kept his secrets? Cameras rolled. Viewers waited. The vault opened and revealed nothing but dust and an old bottle. But it didn't matter. The myth had already won. Conspiracy theorists flooded the narrative. Some believed Capone cut a deal with Lucky Luciano to orchestrate his own downfall, trading prison time for peace in the underworld. Others claimed the FBI framed him, using cooked books and manufactured evidence to strike a blow for political optics. And the most bizarre, that Capone faked his death entirely, escaping to South America to live out his days in secrecy. No proof, no logic, just the power of a name too big to bury. But beyond the legend, the truth had teeth. Capone's downfall reshaped American law. The IRS, once seen as pencil-pushing accountants, became warriors with calculators. Tax evasion became the government's most reliable weapon against organized crime. By 1935, convictions for tax fraud surged by 50%. The FBI, still young and underpowered when Capone ruled, grew into a titan. Its budget doubled. Its agents expanded. Forensic accounting became a weapon as sharp as any bullet. The Capone case was taught at Quantico for decades, not as folklore, but as gospel. Prohibition, Capone's golden goose, died in 1933. The 21st Amendment killed it, stripping bootleggers of their black market fortune. But the legacy of that law, how it birthed monsters like Capone, never faded. The government had handed organized crime a gift in 1919 and spent the next 15 years trying to take it back. Today, the ghost of Capone still haunts Chicago. Tourists flock to Cicero, to the Lexington Hotel where Capone once lived, to his former haunts, now turned into cafes and parking lots. His face is immortalized on t-shirts, mugs, posters. Hollywood can't let go. Scarface, The Untouchables, and dozens of films have reshaped him from monster to myth. A man who killed, bribed, and bled a city is now sold as merchandise at O'Hare Airport gift shops. But dig deeper and the scars are still there. Capone's Chicago isn't just a place, it's a warning. A reminder of what happens when power goes unchecked, when the law is too slow, when money rewrites justice. His rise is thrilling, his fall is tragic. But the space between is a lesson in fear, control, and corruption. He ruled not just with violence, but with psychology. He made himself look untouchable, immortal. And when that illusion cracked, the empire collapsed like wet cement. In 2025, the FBI still uses the Capone case as a blueprint. The vault hosts thousands of declassified files, from prohibition raids to tax records. IRS investigators still reference Frank Wilson's techniques. Crime historians debate whether Capone was a genius or a brute, and every year, new conspiracy theories bubble up on forums, Reddit threads, and YouTube channels, because even now, almost a century later, Al Capone refuses to stay buried. And that's the terrifying beauty of his story. He didn't die on the streets. He didn't fall in a blaze of gunfire. He was destroyed by the very system he mocked. The IRS ledger became the weapon that 1,000 cops couldn't wield. And in that lies a powerful truth. Sometimes, it's not the muscle that wins, it's the math. Capone's name is etched into America's DNA, not because he was the most violent, but because he showed how crime could outsmart the law, until the law learned to fight back in ways the streets never expected. That's why Al Capone still matters, not just as a legend of the past, but as a symbol of how power, when misused, always pays the price in the end. And when that price comes due, it doesn't knock, it audits.